Hello guys, Fens here, and welcome to Diablo 4. I just came home from vacation and they had a campfire talk, so I figured let's go through it again. See what they have for patch 1.11, the one that is supposed to fix all the bad things about the patch 1.1 itself. So let's see, what do we want? Well, one of the things, they gave us one stash tab, and they revealed that the reason that they can only give us one stash tab is because whenever you see a character, they load their entire character, including their stash, which is just, I don't know I don't know coding at all, but that seems dumb, and I'm sure there's a way around that because that seems fucking dumb. So hopefully they're gonna fix that and they're gonna give us more stash tabs. There's sword buffs. There is bar buffs, right? The density has already been added, I believe. So the experience should be kind of where they want it to be. A big thing is the teleport being 5 seconds instead of 3 for some reason. What else was there? I don't think the things they want to do with vulnerability is not going to make it because that's going to require more. I don't think that's going to be today. And also resistances is going to be season 2, right? So I guess we're going to see. Maybe I'll swap from druid to sorc, because honestly the hearts for druid looks fairly boring and the sorc ones look pretty cool. So we'll see. I'll see if I can find the starting point. Oh, this seems good, right? Ooh. Let's see what they have for us.
Happy Friday,
oh, that's
everyone.
A new face.
Welcome to another Diablo 4
Who's that guy?
Campfire Chat. My name is Adam Fletcher. I am the Associate Director of
Lead Designer. Lead Class
Joined
Designer.
by
Okay.
Joe Shelley, Game Director for Diablo 4.
So he's the guy who gave us the shit show that is the current sorcerer. Right.
Mr. Joe Pipora, which you guys know of, and Joe as well, I guess. So, I mean, familiar faces. Associate Director for Diablo 4.
Looks like Joe Shirley has gotten a bit more sleep.
Brand new face here. He is our lead class designer for Diablo 4. We have a lot to talk about today. Yep. In fact, just note, there's 2 Adams, 2 Joes, so this is going to get really confusing here.
Yeah, that's actually kind of funny. Like, literally there are 4 guys on the panel and only 2 different names. How well, the universe, like the world is a large place, huh?
And we were thinking about, like, maybe we do like a battle royale or something like that to, you know, determine who talks next or whatever. But I will say we actually do have a lot to talk about. In fact, I would
go by last names, but Pipiora is hard. Fletcher, Jackson I can handle. Shelley I can handle.
Campfire Plus. Yeah.
Campfire Plus.
Plus. It was like New Game Plus.
Their little battle is what they're talking about, I guess.
But we do have a lot to talk about, specifically around patch 1.1.1. Did I say enough ones?
Yeah, you did.
1.11? 1.11. Patch 1.11.
We did.
We are going to talk about some balance changes that are going to be coming to that patch. And of course, we're also going to be talking about the dates of when that patch is actually going to be hitting.
I wonder if I should have just read the patch notes instead of watching this. I think this is going to be fun.
Along with when
it is a bit long, though.
Seeing the patch notes,
maybe I should put this out on the other channel.
The actual patch does actually hit.
We'll try it on the main for now.
I know we do want to jump right into it because we do have a ton.
Yeah, please do.
To talk about.
Let's see. I'm going to turn it up a bit.
I will actually throw it over here to.
Is that fine?
Jackson,
might be a little loud. I'm not sure.
About kind of like the class balance and what we're thinking about for 1.11. Yeah.
I think it's fine because mostly I'm going to pause to talk anyways, so I don't have to talk over them. So it seems that it's fine. They're a little loud, but I guess we'll see. I can't fix it afterwards, so it is what it is, but I think this is going to be fine.
Yeah, totally. Glad to be here. We have a lot to talk about. So first I want to kind of frame this in our goals and what we're going to be doing in this patch in the immediate future, and then talking a little bit about kind of how the class team feels about classes and kind of what we're thinking in a more mid to long-term space. So for this patch, we've got a lot going on. One of our goals is kind of, I think, obvious to the community. We want to kind of improve the effectiveness and the fun of the Sorcerer and the Barbarian. So we've got a lot of changes coming in there, and I think I want to frame this in 2 ways of kind of what we're thinking about the Sorcerer and then what we're thinking about with the Barbarian.
Okay, so for starters, the Sorcerer, all of the legendaries and all of their unique has downsides to them, basically. Either downsides or like proc chances or something. there is none that's just, or they're generic, right? Like sorcerers mostly use generic shit, like you do more damage to stun target, you do more damage to fucking vulnerable, you do more damage while you have a barrier, stuff like that. It would be nice to see some things that actually alter skills. Like the druid has the one where your shockwave now also does a fucking, your pulverize also does a shockwave, right? Sorc has nothing like that as far as I'm aware.
Because they both have.
They have ice shots, fire more projectiles, and they have like, you have a chance to proc random shit, but not kind of like a deterministic sort of way.
Kind of different things going on.
But what Sorc really needs is defensive help, I think. I think damage is fine because of the hearts, ? Although I think it might be a bit boringish, but I think damage is fine, I believe, but they need defensiveness.
For the sorcerer in this patch, we're focusing on reducing something that we call kiss curse mechanics, which is kind of, I know, very designer.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
But it's this idea that we give you a really cool power effect, and then we kind of take something away or make it nerfed or nerf some other part of you in some way, usually for balance reasons.
Yeah, but no other class has that. Only Sorc, as far as I'm aware.
To make sure that it's not just out of control and power.
Yeah, usually the idea there is like, to your point, it's like, so we really have like 20% we can afford to give you, but if we take 10% of something else away, we can give you 30% or 35% and feel a little bit better about that.
Exactly. Usually it's to sell a fantasy in a really strong way, but we can't like do that justifiably without just breaking the mechanic. But we found out in a lot of ways we've been a little too harsh with that, and so we're going to try and reduce or remove that in some cases. And then the other one is late game survivability. We know that the sorcerers typically have a
So exactly what I wanted. Nice.
Pushing those later Nightmare Dungeon tiers. And so we're going to be looking at ways to increase that.
And Lilith, everything one-shot you there. I don't know if that's supposed to be.
The Serpentine aspect, if you know that one, it's the one where you can spawn an additional Hydra, but it reduces the duration of your Hydras. That's just no longer going to reduce the duration. It's actually going to increase it. So that's an example of something. We'll go into more detail later.
Wait. They just said that they just said that we take something away because otherwise we can't justify it, and then they literally just stopped taking it away and gave it more. So I mean, cool, I guess. That speaks volumes to how what the fuck's the word? How fucking underperforming that was. That's not a sentence, but you get what I mean, so I'm just gonna go with it.
For the Barbarian, we're focusing on improving the early game.
Wait, you mentioned one thing and now you're skipping to the Barbarian? Okay.
And making it feel better and just more fluid. We're going to be improving the Fury generation that you get from your basic skills. And then we're also looking at the late game for the Barbarian by making a lot of their uniques more attractive and effective. So you're going to see later when we go through the notes that we're going to be changing around usually about one affix per unique from something that really isn't that attractive for players to something that they really, really want, which we think will help make those items really exciting.
So they're not going to change the uniques and how they function. They're just going to change the itemization on the uniques to make them just more potent. So if it had, say, overpower damage, which they don't use, right? They would put like critical strike damage on it just to take one fucking outlier to the next, rather than fixing the effect, I guess. Okay. And then obviously early game, so it's more fun to level. I'm not sure if that's a problem, but I guess it might be. Fury gen is always a good thing. You don't want to, like, resource management is, for me, unless you make, resource management is always something that, for ARPG at least, I feel like it's always something that you want to get to the point where you don't have to anymore, or where you get to the point where actually doing your dam is also managing your resources, like it was in the Blizzard Talk, where wherever you hit a cooldown you got mana. So that was effectively how you were managing your resources, was to keep fucking blasting, right? Whereas for a Barbarian in, say, Diablo 3, you would make it so you never had to stop whirlwinding. You just go, never have to gen up any fury. Or you'd make it feel important to generate your fury or your whatever. Like in the Diablo 3 monk, they had those fist weapons. I hate fucking using them, but whenever you build up your what was it, chi or whatever it was, I don't know what it was in Diablo 3, I don't remember, and you hit max, you'd get a massive buff and then it would just deplete. And while it was depleting, you had the buff. So it's about keep building and also doing a lot of damn. But just building to spend, and then you just have downtime while you're building again is not fun. So I guess less downtime is good, but I would have loved to see something a little bit more creative, unless, because he just said resource buffs, right? But I might be jumping ahead. I might be wrong. That is what I get from now.
Now, when we make changes to items, specifically items like uniques, many of these changes only take effect on new items, right? Like I think we have an example of the Hellhammer here.
Yeah, kind of. It's a little.
Okay, let's see what happened. Upheaval ignites the ground, burning for an additional. So that's the same shit. What did it do? Damage to two-handed, damage to crowd control, critical strike damage. Also, they took damage to crowd-controlled enemies and put in critical strike damage. And still damage reduction from enemies that are burning. Okay.
A little bit more complex than that. So we're going to delve into one of our examples of what we're updating here. But when we update a unique item, we actually update Hellhammer in two different ways. So we're increasing the duration that the ground is going to be ignited and burning, and then we're also increasing the damage. And that's the actual...
That doesn't show from this tooltip, brother, but I guess I'll take his word for it.
Unique effect power, you know, the exciting thing that the item does. But you can see here on Hellhammer, we're also doing another change where we're actually granting you bonus critical strike damage and removing the bonus damage to crowd control enemies, right? So
that's really cool.
On the left, what you see here, when you log into the game, you know, after this patch, the left version is what you're going to get. So you're not going to get the critical strike damage change where the actual item affix there, the rule changed, but you are going to get the updates to the upheaval, lasting longer and doing more damage.
So what he's saying is that this has been buffed as well. That is not showcased in the tooltip. I'll take his word for it. So basically what he's saying is that this is going to get changed on the item, but you're going to keep the item you have. I don't know. I mean, yeah, because if you have this and it's roll good and then you get critical strike and it breaks the roll, you can't re-roll it. I guess it makes sense. You'll still get a buff on it, right? But I think effectively a lot of these things people aren't using already, right? So it just means that you can't take it out of your stash. And for the ones who were using it, their character is only more powerful and not potentially bricked if they had built for crowd control or whatever, right? I think that's a good idea. I think that makes sense.
On the right, when you find your new items after the patch, you're going to get the new affixes, the new rules and things on the item.
Oh, it's not final?
So new versions of these items will have all of the buffs we're talking about.
New versions will have everything new, and the old versions will get the new stuff on the actual legendary effects, but then you won't have the new item stats on it.
Got it. Thank you.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so
I think it's a good idea.
Kind of other things that we're looking at. So that's the sorcerer and the barbarian what we're focusing on. Then generally across all classes, we're doing a few other things as well.
Okay.
We're looking at builds that aren't really hitting a high enough power level, and we're going to be just buffing them and increasing the power of them, so they should feel better. And be
more buffs, okay.
We're also going to be looking at increasing the attractiveness of kind of uniques across the board. We're focusing on sorcerer and barbarian for this patch, but we actually believe that we can do this kind of thing across the board. There's a lot of uniques that we think aren't really hitting the mark.
Nice.
It's something that's kind of a tough thing that we talk about a lot on the team, because you know the roles and the things that the uniques have as far as their item power are all fixed, right? They can't re-roll different stats all over the place. So we could very easily just make all uniques really good by putting all the best stats on the items, right?
Yes, please do that.
For us. But we kind of have a push and pull there where we don't want to just make all of them clearly the best items in the game because they have all the best stats and they have really good powers. We want there to be something that's really unique and attractive about them, and you have to kind of think of how you're going to fit these into your character's build.
One of the things I really like about Sorcerer is they have the Raiment of the Infinite, which is the unique chest that every single Sorcerer build has to use, basically, where you blink in and it pulls them to you and they're stunned. Whereas other chests have a lot of defensive things to it, that thing is almost purely just fucking glass cannon. You even have the glass cannon talent on it. I'm fairly certain that thing provides next to no fucking defensiveness, but I might be talking out my ass. That's pretty cool. Whereas all the chests usually have some defensiveness to it, which also, well, it does make the Sorcerer more squishy. I think it's cool that they're doing all the uniques. I feel like it worked that we were so outraged and angry about the patch, and they got their finger out their ass. That's what I'm feeling right now. It might also just be PR saying we need good press, do the things they like, and well.
But
Hopefully
we think
not.
that we are just not hitting the mark on a lot of them, so we're boosting them a little bit and then just kind of seeing how that goes. Next, we're going to be looking at opening up build-specific designs to be more widely useful. So there's a lot of effects on legendary powers and in other places where, this effect only works in a very narrow use case, like only on a single skill or a single group of skills, or we use a certain proc to get it. And in many cases, we're just going to open that up to be more widely usable.
That's fucking amazing. That sounds really fucking dope. That's big pog. Like, damn, that's pog.
So that players can actually, use them in more different builds.
Dude, that's cool.
Ways.
Fuck yes.
One example of this that we'll go over later is Chain Lightning's upgrade, Greater Chain Lightning. Currently, it gives you the bounces of Chain Lightning do bonus damage when it bounces off of you. And we're going to change that so that it just does bonus damage when it bounces off of anything. So instead of being kind of a narrow use case where you're only using it like on a boss or a single target enemy and getting value, you'll just get it a lot more often now.
Yeah.
That's not at all what you said. But I mean, it's a good buff. But that's not at all what you said. That maybe means we can play Chain Lightning builds. That sounds fucking pog. I want that. I like Chain Lightning. But that was not what I thought you said. But cool. We'll see. Maybe he just picked a bad one off the top of his head. Because the other thing he said, where he's going to open up aspects, like let's say, what do we have? We have an aspect, Druid Pulverize creates a shockwave, right? If that is now, what's it called? Werebear skills now create a shockwave, or core skills now create a shockwave, or slam skills or whatever, like some sort of more generic thing. That would be fucking dope.
It feels like a much better lightning range skill now in that way. It's easier for me to clear packs, so it's good. I like that.
Yeah,
it's easier for you to clear packs, yeah, because you buffed it by an unbelievable amount. I think it's 10x damage it does when it changes off yourself. So whenever it changes off something else, it does 10x damage. Yeah, you're clearing packs a lot faster when it does 10x damage. You're correct.
Yeah, totally. So that's kind of what we're looking at for this patch.
Okay, so we talked last week about sort of our things that we want to do, like going forward in the game, other things we want to do. Not all of that stuff is in this patch.
Yeah, right? No, we have a lot of talks on our team. We have a lot of things that we're thinking about and going on.
He's kind of taking on the Rod Ferguson role, Joe Shirley.
How we feel about more longer term goals and things about the game.
Did the community hate Rod Ferguson coming on? Because I kind of enjoyed it. The Maniculan Tunnel, albeit gross, I think it was decent enough. Like, he was very corporate, very selling on some things, especially the battle pass. And when his leading question didn't go where he wanted them, sometimes it was a bit. But I kind of liked it. I don't know. Maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I'm the silent. Don't fucking crucify me, right?
So these aren't coming in this patch, but things that we're thinking about that'll come in the future.
I don't care about what's coming in the future. I want now.
The first one is kind of finding ways to bring different types of damage closer together. As I'm sure many of you in the community know,
different types of damage.
Vulnerable and crit are really, really strong right now. Kind of a lot of the meta is about, you make an enemy vulnerable and then you do bonus damage to them, and then you stack as much crit strike chance and crit damage as you can, and then you blow them up, right? Our game actually was foundationally made with other types of builds that aren't only those in mind, right? We have like damage over time or dot damage, things like firewall.
Yeah, but you have nothing to support it. That's the problem. But tell me that you're putting something in to support it.
Or Shadow Necro does a lot of this. We also have Overpower as a mechanic in our game. And these other different ways to build your character, we want them to have parity with, vulnerable and crit damage.
Yeah, but then you need to take Overpower out and have it be additive with vulnerable or crit, right? So that it is a viable option path. But please tell me that you're doing exactly what I described in my video. Please do that. Please tell me that. Please. For the love of God, make Overpower a fucking another path other than crit, right? Please.
So we're going to be trying to find, our goal is to find a way, and we're working on it right now, that all those different ways of dealing damage have a lot of parity. So no matter if you're an Overpower build or a crit build or a damage over time build, you will be relatively equal in power to all of the other different types of ways to play.
Yes, for love of God, I made the video, right? It's like the CDR crit nerf thing where I go through the spreadsheets. Please, for the love of God, make overpower competitive with crit. Just make them additive, or make it so that make them additive. Make it so that you can't overpower or crit at the same time. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but put them in the same fucking bucket, and then make a dot frequency or something. Yes. Dot haste.
So another one that we're looking at is adding scaling to builds and effects that don't really scale very well in the game. This is something that I think is a big opportunity for us to open up just excitement in different builds in the game. And what I mean by this is we have a lot of legendary powers and effects that like spawn a new thing. An example of this is like on the Barbarian, there's some legendary powers that spawn earthquakes or dust devils. Another one is the Necromancer has like things that leave shadow trails on the ground that deal damage. And these things, they deal what we call flat damage, which is like we give it a damage number, and then that's how much it does, and then that damage number kind of scales with player level. But what we find is that a lot of these things are really good in the early and mid game when they drop, but then when you get to the really late game, they kind of fall off really hard. And what we want to do is find ways to add scaling so that the player can opt into like making a build out of these things. So if I want to be an Earthquake Barbarian or a Dust Devil Barbarian, I can actually do that, and it's supported by the game.
That sounds sort of cancerous and extremely impossible unless you're gonna build a specific system around only scaling Dust Devils. Because otherwise, if you just get it from your regular damage, you're just gonna slap that shit on every build and just double your damage or whatever.
So that's something that we're really excited about because we think that'll open up a lot more build possibilities. Ultimates are kind of in this range as well. This is a more long-term goal. But similarly, you know, a lot of ultimates are really strong in the early and mid game. You take it blows up the screen, feels great. And then in the late game, a lot of ultimates that we see that are just used because they buff the player in some way.
Yeah, they don't blow up the screen the same way anymore.
Yeah, right. I want you to be excited to use Bone Storm because Bone Storm is awesome, not because it gives you a buff, right?
I think that's cool. One of the ways you can make ultimates way more interesting is just give us an ultimate button. Just slap on an ultimate button. All of a sudden, almost every single fucking build in the game will have an ultimate of some kind. And then you're obviously making them more powerful would also be interesting, but I don't really want to be forced to taking something on like a minute-long cooldown in an ARPG. I don't think it feels all that good to have, because if you're relying on your ultimate and it's a fucking 1 minute cooldown, you're doing nothing outside of your 1 minute cooldown, right? So what they want here, I don't think it's going to work unless you kind of get it for free. But maybe that's me. Maybe they can surprise me.
Or you know, Grizzly Rage or other ones, right? So that's kind of something that we're thinking about in the mid to long term to make the game kind of open up and have more builds available.
So we've been talking here a little bit about sort of our philosophy here. We're about to get into patch notes. We're about to talk about Sorcerer. But we thought that it was important to talk a little bit about this philosophy, both because we want to be
I don't like
very
Joe Shelley in
terms
this
of, like, how we're thinking about
in
the
this
game,
role.
what kinds of, like, why we're making changes. Both so that when you see changes, you can understand what we're thinking, like what we're going for, and also so that
I think Adam Fletcher is supposed to do
we
this.
can incorporate feedback from the community, feedback from you into these kinds of changes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think Adam Fletcher would be better suited for doing, right? He's the community manager. Joe Shelley's he's a developer, as far as I'm aware, right? He's the lead something. I don't remember. He's important boy in Diablo 4 universe. Well, not well. I think it would be better if they have Adam Fletcher be the on the panel of like esports and stuff. They have like a couple of analysts, and then they have a host, right? I don't think Joe Shelley should be the host. I think he should be the analyst, and I think Adam Fletcher would be better at doing the hosting, because kind of. I'm not saying he's not good at it. I'm just saying I'd rather hear him talk about the game.
And that goes down even to the format for this particular live stream, right? So like
Game
we're going to
director,
go through
that's
a
what
lot
he
of
is.
details really soon, which I think people are really excited about. I hope people are really excited about, because we're going to have a lot of those. And then afterwards, we want to hear back from the community about like how this worked. Like, was this the best way to get this information? Did you get a lot of good data from us, and do you understand why we're doing making the changes that we are? Right, and to Joe's point, again, it's really useful for you to understand these things. It's going to help with the feedback that you give us back, whether we're hitting it or not.
Well, quite frankly, I think the best way to do it is just fucking fire out some patch notes and then let people give you the feedback. But I fucking like this shit. I like listening to what they're saying, and I like kind of picking holes in it when they say something stupid. I enjoy this. I prefer these, but I think they're fairly expensive. I think they're gonna go to patch notes pretty quickly, and it'll get kind of the same shit done. But I enjoy this. I hope they keep doing this.
Yeah, and this is like a multi-stage type of thing. So we're actually gonna. You guys are about to see a ton of slides here in a second, going through pretty much
patch
all
notes,
the
nice.
different
We're gonna see it on
balance
text.
changes that
I'm
are
better
coming
with text
across,
than just hearing.
the classes. But then, like we said, like we do plan on releasing patch notes so that you guys can actually read them in more detail. And in those patch notes will be, additional information such as like all the bug fixes and so forth that will be coming in with the game itself with 1.1.1. So.
Do we know when we're getting the? We plan on releasing those?
So we are. Look at this. We had planned this to talk about it later, and now like.
Sorry.
I know now you're just gonna spoil it. We're actually gonna release patch notes, full patch notes. You guys will see these patch notes first here on the stream, but we will release patch notes next Wednesday. On
Next
August
Wednesday.
2nd, so that everyone will end up seeing it. We'll talk about the patch date here at the end of the stream. We're closer to the end of the stream.
Yeah, so just wait for the end of the stream. We'll talk about when that's going to go out.
But what we do want to do is we do want to jump straight into the balance changes.
Wait, so we're gonna watch the Campfire now, and they're not gonna release the patch note until next Wednesday? I think they'd be much better off just releasing the patch notes after this, and then iterating on them, and then just saying Wednesdays they're going to be finalized, and they're going to just Wednesday they're just going to go republish the finalized version of them or something. But maybe that'll confuse people.
So forth.
Yeah.
And we do want to start off with the sorcerers.
Oh,
so
okay.
we have a lot of different slides and changes here that we do want to detail. So Adam, I know, wants to go through them all.
Yeah, totally. So I think what I'll do is just give you a few moments to look at the screen and kind of see what we're doing, and then talk high level about some of the bigger
Okay, so
changes.
Flickering Firebolt.
So Flickering Firebolt
Oh, he's gonna go through it, so I guess I don't have to.
is one we're changing Firebolt to basically just generate mana when you hit an enemy. Before it was only generated when you hit a burning enemy. So when you would just try and cast Firebolt, without doing anything else, you would just always miss the first hit of getting the mana, which felt bad a lot.
That always felt bad. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but if you're playing Firebolt as an actual skill, you're probably playing a burning build, right? And you'd be setting them on fire before you do anything. Actually, if you're playing a sorcerer, you're setting them on fire before you're doing anything because it's your only DR. I don't think this... Well, I mean, sure. In the case that you go in, you fire a Firebolt before doing anything else, you're going to get 2 more mana than if you didn't. Whatever.
Yeah, it says negative feedback loop, so we're just going to make it, feel nicer. You still feel nice about burning things and piercing, but you just get it more often. Probably another big one here is the greater chain lightning change I talked about, where every time that it bounces, the next hit.
Wait, so you just skipped Fireball? Okay, so Enhanced Fireball. Change to casting Fireball increases radius by 50%. Destructive Fireball. Change to Fireball's critical strike damage increased by 20%. It's 30 if it hits 3 or more. I don't know what it was before. Because I never played Fireball because it was kind of shit. But yeah, he's going to talk about Chain Lightning now.
It would deal damage rather than only bouncing off of you, and then we're also buffing the other choice for destructive Chain Lightning, so you get more crackling energies.
Okay, so, well, I mean, you can kind of see it still, but... So I think it was 10% before when the Chain Lightning was, now it's down to 5%, but I guess it's all the time, so it's just, you take this for 5% more, I guess, whatever. Veer's Mastery, damage bonus increased 10 to 15. Which one is that again? Veer's Mastery.
Next one, let's go to the passives. These are all the key passives at the bottom of the skill tree.
Okay.
Isu's Ferocity is a big one. You're going to see a lot of these kinds of changes where it used to work kind of in a more narrow use case, and now it works in a case that it didn't, so that's just generically good.
Oh, so instead of...
This one, it used to not really work on bosses very well.
Yeah.
You had to kill enemies by critting them to get the bonus, and now you can also get it during boss fights by just hitting them.
Wait, so they just flat out buffed Combustion by 20% increased damage to burning? So every... So before it was just you deal more per unique burning source. There's no cap here. I'm assuming there's still a cap to 3 unique sources, but now it's just 20% and then an additional. Okay. And well, they make Isu's work on bosses. That's good. And Veer's just got a 5%. I'm not sure what Veer is. I don't think I ever looked at it.
The boss and critting them. So you'll just have uptime and usefulness in a part of the game that it didn't before.
That's nice. Paragon, Searing
next for
Heat.
Paragon, we're gonna talk. Let's see.
Well, he's not going to talk about them all, so I'm going to look at them. Change to casting fireball, immediately increase your critical strikes and about 5% for 5 seconds, up to 15%. I don't remember what that was before. Was it critical strike damage 30%? Ceaseless Conduit, legendary node, increased crackling energy damage from 2 to 3 per 20 intelligence. So that's just a 1% more scale. Reinforced rare glyph. Damage reduction. Territorial rare glyph. Damage reduction. Oh, is that how they're going to do it? They're just going to up the DR. Warding rare glyph. Damage reduction increase. Keeper of Flames rare node. Damage reduction increase from 4 to 5. Bonus damage reduction. Okay, so
You've got these are a lot of the defensive changes that we talked about. So you've got
these are a lot of the defensive changes you're talking about. Okay. Jesus. I think you used the territorial, right? As far as I remember. I don't think you use warding or reinforced. But you do use Keeper of Flame. Is there more than one of those? There might be. Is that a lot of the changes you're getting? Holy shit, that's not a lot.
some damage reduction increases to a lot of the glyphs and nodes across the board. Again, we're targeting that late game survivability for the sorcerer. Another one that kind of opens up more ways to play and just makes it more usable is the Searing Heat Legendary node. This one is when you cast Fireball or Meteor, now it just increases your crit strike chance across the board for 5 seconds, so you can get that crit strike and use it.
Oh, it was only to Fireball or Meteor. Now it's across the board. Okay, makes sense.
Extremely strong in Diablo 4.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
So these things should be pretty impactful.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I don't think you use Reinforce or Warding. Smoldering Embers. Damage reduction from burning enemies increase. Again, so just all of your damage reduction from things is just going to increase. That's nice. Oppressive. Damage reduction from vulnerable enemies increased. Maximum life bonus. 2% extra maximum life and on both of them. But I don't think you take those, but maybe I'm wrong.
All right, so here
I don't think you can afford pathing through them.
Damage reduction across the board.
But all the fire ones you're getting.
On some of the rare
It might change, right? Because right now you're taking all the fire ones because basically everything else is useless. But I don't really see you taking reduced damage. Damage reduction from vulnerable enemies seems really stupid because the best tool for making things vulnerable is Frost Nova. And guess what? They're fucking frozen.
nodes, you can see them twice in a board.
I guess it works on
rather than
bosses.
once for the glyphs, so that means that this is actually like doubled if you go for both. of
And
them.
I guess if you play the
And only we're also
sword.
increasing the maximum life
Ice
bonus on a
sword.
couple nodes. Again, just targeting that late game survivability. And now legend.
I was hoping to see some buffs to legendaries, but they can come still. So this is what they talk about, the Serpentine aspect. You may now have an additional 1 Hydra active, and Hydra's duration increased by... Okay. Oh, it also affects Hydra's enchantment effect. Nice. Aspect of Conflagration. Bonus burning damage increased from 20 to 30 to 20 to 40. Isn't that the one where if you have more... Wait, what is this one? Is this not the one where you have more... Aspect of bonus burning damage increase? Wait, what are these? I don't remember what these are. Bonus burning damage increase from 20. It's aspects, so it is legendary powers. I don't remember these at all. Maybe they weren't good, so you didn't use them, or maybe they're seasonal. Aspect of 3 curses change. Increase the critical strike damage of meteor and fireball by 20 to 40%. Double this bonus against health of the enemy. Flavor over bonus movement speed. Ball lightning orbits you around and deals. Oh, okay. That used to be it deals less damage. That's cool. The fuck? Bonus burning damage increased from 60 to 80%? The fuck are these aspects?
Legendary, sir. So there's a lot to chew on here.
There's
So-
your first one, Serpentine.
Yep, there it is. That's one we talked about before. So now you can have a Hydra active, and instead of the duration being decreased, it's actually going to be increased. Next, we've got some, again, damage buff numbers to things that are underperforming. Aspect of 3 curses is one that I'm particularly.
So I've played a burning build, and I don't remember aspect of conflagration or aspect of engulfing flames. That's kind of insane, isn't it? I feel like one of them is probably that one where you have more burning than... One of them might be the incinerate one, right? Where when you're burning, when you're incinerating, you're burning on the target does more damage, right? Isn't that an aspect? I think that's an aspect. Is the other one then when you have more burning than on the target, then it has HP, you do bonus damage? But I feel like that was direct damage, but maybe I'm wrong. If it's those two, they're still ass, I think, just because they just don't work.
Particularly excited about. Before, this one used to be that it only increased your crit damage of meteor only and only against healthy enemies. So it was one skill and only healthy enemies. Now it's going to work on meteor and fireball, and you get half of the bonus all the time, and then an extra bonus against healthy enemies.
Is this them trying to make things work on more things, that they add fireball to it? Why is it not fire skills? Like, increase the critical strike damage of fire projectiles or whatever, fire skills. Like, and double this. Why is it only meteor and fireball? Why is it not fucking that piss basic skill you have? What is it? Flame shot or whatever it is. Why does it not work on Hydra? Like, I get that it doesn't work on firewall because firewall's a fucking dot, but maybe I'm stupid, but that's my take.
So now you can use this in builds that you weren't able to at all before. The next one is pretty good, is gravitational aspects. This one was it used to reduce your damage.
Yeah, this is really good.
For the lightnings orbiting around you. Now we're going to increase it. So again, that's a pretty big swing in power. Next, we've got recharging aspect. This one was kind of similar to the change that we did.
It bounced off you, right? So this is just fucking great, right?
Only give you mana when it bounced off of you. Now
That's pretty good.
Give you mana when it bounces off of everything. So again,
so every time you cast a chain lightning, you get what, 15 mana back? It bounces 5 times, right? And it costs 30, so 50% mana reduction basically. That's pretty fucking good. What's the other one? Bonus chain lightning bounces increased, so even more mana synergy. I don't know if that's probably a damage aspect, so it might not be worth it. I mean, I guess because you still get it on single target. If it bounces 4 more times, that is just fucking what, 400%? Well, it's not 400% damage increase, but you get what I mean. Does it lose damage when it bounces? Now, movement speed, we don't care about that. Bounding conduit, also movement speed. The only way we would care about the movement speed is if those uniques that turn your movement speed into crit is actually good. New legendary, okay. The Veer Mastery Key passive damage reduction is increased. Ooh, for each close enemy. Okay. So you might start playing Veer. It's too bad I don't know what it does. Aspect of frozen orbit. Damage increased. Aspect of frozen. Does that make your frozen orb go around you? Or what does... That's good, I guess.
A lot more usable. And in combination with that Unbroken Tether, I think Chain Lightning players are going to be eating pretty this patch. We're also increasing the bonuses of Chain Lightning that you get.
Lightning Sword seems pog.
Lots of Chain Lightning bounces. They give you lots of things. Should be really fun. We're also putting a new legendary into the game. This is the Mage Lord's aspect. This one makes your Veer's Mastery Key passive, the damage reduction there, be increased by quite a bit so that you can survive when you're in that melee range.
That's pretty fucking cool.
And let me see here.
Storm Swell.
Snow Veiled aspect is getting a pretty big generic.
Let's see. Storm Swell aspect. Bonus damage increase from 11 to 20% to 21 to 30%. Storm Swell. I mean, that's Blizzard, right? Maybe? Or is it... Storm Veiled aspect. Unstoppable duration increased. That's whenever you have ice armor. 10% bonus armor. Well, okay, that's pretty good defensiveness. You might fucking use that now. Incendiary aspect. Change to lucky hit. Damage from your pyromancy skill has up to a... Was that burned before? That your burn had a chance to restore mana? So it's a lucky hit of a 17% chance to restore 10 mana. That still seems kind of shit. Snowguard, change to while within your own blizzard and for 2 seconds after leaving it, you take... So it's just you get the 2 seconds after leaving it. That's nice. Aspect of concentration. Mana regeneration increased from... That is whenever you haven't get hit, right? Yeah, so whenever you haven't get hit, you get more mana regen. Fine, cool.
Generic buff, where before it just gave you unstoppable when you used Frost Armor.
Ice armor. Wait, is Frost armor? Isn't it
But now
ISO?
it also gives you bonus armor when you use it as well.
That's pretty cool.
Generally more useful. Incendiary
I think
aspect
you're gonna run that
terrifies
then.
me, but we're doing it. This one used to be that it procced off of all of your burning damage.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Your burning damage could give you mana, and now it's going to just do it off of your pyromancy skills damage. So this opens up meteor, fireball, all of those other skills that aren't really fireball.
That's good, but it's a low chance, so it's good.
I think that's good for that one.
Oh,
And then
uniques.
For uniques, we've got the Gloves of the Illuminator. This is the one where your fireballs bounce and deal AoE damage.
Oh, you're buffing that again.
Before, when you got this, it was kind of in a very weird place where the bounces could do it pretty often in such a way where you'd only hit an enemy once with a bounce. And we have to put this damage penalty on it because, you know, you can hit enemies multiple times with it, and it's AoE, and gives you a bunch of procs of all of your stuff, so it's really, really strong. But because you could only hit an enemy once, a lot of times this was just a damage nerf for your character.
Yeah, you'd bounce it one time on a monster, and that was that.
And now
yeah.
you got nerfed for getting unique, right?
That's
that never feels good. So we reduced the distance that it bounces a little bit, so it should be more.
Dude, what's the problem with, like, I know they said we have to put the damage penalty on. Do you really? Like, do you really? It's like they just said, usually you only hit one enemy with it, right? Right. So you're not going to hit the same enemy twice. So who the fuck cares if it bounces onto enemies behind it? Isn't that what it's supposed to do? Does it matter that it makes you fucking basically... I mean, as many enemies you can hit, that's how many percent increase it is. Does that matter? Maybe I'm off, but I don't think it. I think that's a bad take. I don't think you have to reduce the damage it does. Honestly, like, you're. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Easier to consistently hit an enemy twice.
Damage
and then we
to
also
stunned.
reduce that damage penalty. So now, no matter what, if you hit an enemy twice, it's a damage bonus.
Yeah. So if you hit an enemy twice, it's a damage bonus, right? No matter what, barely, but it is. But why is it not just every enemy you hit? It's just woohoo! Like, if I hit one, I lost nothing. If I hit two, I gain 2x damage. If I hit three, I gain 3x damage. Who the fuck cares? It's not the same mob. It's not like you're gonna fucking go to Lilith and then bounce her 10 times and she just gets clapped, right? Like, it's not happening. It's gonna bounce forward. I mean, maybe if you time it really well when she's flying or something stupid, but then you can hit her maybe 3 times. Who the fuck cares? I don't think this is. I don't agree with this. And then also damage to stunned effects replaced with lucky hit, chance to restore resource. So they're taking damage away from it, actually. Maybe that's better. I'm not sure.
And then we also replaced one of its affixes from damage to stunned to lucky hit to restore resource. And since this thing, bounces and hits enemies a lot of time, the lucky hit procs are very powerful with this. So we think this will be a lot more attractive for players.
Fair.
All right, moving on to the Barbarian.
Wait, that's the sword changes? That's it? I'm a little bit disappointed, but some of them are cool. And I think Chain Lightning Sword is looking tempting. Let's see this. Bash, Flay, Frenzy. You just gain 2, 3, and 1 more Fury. Lunging, that's already the best one, I believe, right? And you get 2 more Fury for it, so that's still the best one, I guess. Oh, but it does give you 1 less than Bash and Flay, but I think it's still the best one. Double Swing, so 10% increased dam. Rupture, well, that's a lot. That's a big buff. That's 25% more dam. Charge, 60%, and they added a charge legendary, maybe. Mighty Charge, 2 more seconds of on. That's pretty good.
So, like I said before, we're increasing the Fury generation of all of those basic skills. So you're just going to get more Fury in the early game so that you can, do that basic core skill loop.
I think you're still just going to play lunging.
Double Swings gain a damage buff, Ruptures gain a damage buff, Charges gain a damage buff, and one of the enhancements is increasing that vulnerable duration, so it should hopefully be more attractive.
That's pretty cool.
One thing I do want to note is, like, even on if we go back to the other slide, like,
Sure.
A lot of people are going, like, Fury gain 11 to 13 and like 10 to 13, and they're always like noting like, well, that doesn't feel like a big number and so forth. But I think players,
by percentage, it's really big.
Yeah, by percentage,
it also
it's actually
scales
really
with a
big.
whole lot of other stuff. It gets spooky when we do too much in a percent wise.
Exactly. So I think
because of how everything works in our game.
I think people are seeing some of the smaller numbers, but not realizing that other things. Obviously, it scales with other things and other And
Yeah, I mean, it's a large
mixes
percent
in with-
increase.
with whether
It was fine.
other gear that you have and so forth. So this is just the baseline number. And you have to remember that obviously when that number gets tweaked, everything else gets tweaked. That gets.
Want to point that out too when we do like damage increases, where it might seem small because it's increasing the base that everything else multiplies and scales on. It can be a bit. I mean, sometimes it's not as much. We can go and do it again, right? But it's scary and risky. So we have.
I
to,
don't
think
like
about
that
because
they're
it's
so
very easy to be
scared
like,
of
"Oh, just
buffing
make it
things,
20."
man.
And now late game you're just like bashing once and then getting all your fury back or something, right?
Right.
So. All right.
Alright, violent upheaval. Change to if damage at least 2 enemies or a boss, you gain berserking for 2 seconds, increase to 3 seconds if it damage at least 4 enemies. Okay. Aggressive resistant, damage reduction increased from 3 to 4. Okay. Gushing wounds. Based on critical bonus increased from 100. Oh, that's big. Bleed damage and overpowering increased from 11 to 70%? Jesus. So an overpower, can you guarantee overpower? Like, unless they're going to add something to increase your overpower chance, that seems sort of like whatever, but I guess. Unconstrained. 10% more damn. Update tool to more clearly reflect this key passive's value. Okay. Walking Arsenal. Now 2 seconds more duration.
So
Pretty
violent
good, I guess.
upheaval, this one gives you berserking, and it used to be that you had to damage 2 or more enemies or 3 or more enemies to get a better buff, and now we're adding bosses to that. So
That's
when you're in
good.
a boss fight, you're just going to be able to get and chain that berserking again, making it usable in a part of the game where it didn't used to be.
That's good.
We've also got Gushing Wounds is one I think worth calling out. This is the key passive. We're increasing the scaling of your bleed to crit damage, and then also your bleed damage when you overpower an enemy is going up significantly.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, so now when you overpower and get that AoE blood burst, it's actually going to do quite a bit.
Yeah, but it's still only a 3% chance, so give me something
Walking
to increase
Arsenal's
the chance and
another
I'll
one
be
worth calling out
interested.
Here. We heard some feedback that it's really hard to keep up all 3 of your weapon types when you're doing Walking Arsenal. Usually 2 is fairly easy. You can like have a basic and a core that are different weapons, but getting that third one to consistently happen, especially if you're using a cooldown skill like Charge or Leap or something like that, it can be hard to maintain that. So we're just increasing it to make
But
it more forgiving.
shouldn't it be hard to maintain all 3? I haven't played Barb, so maybe
That
it's
was
not
awful for me
fun.
when I had Deathblow charges, but whenever I was only running like 1 Deathblow charge at a time, like that build just didn't.
Yeah,
really come
Deathblow's
online.
probably one of the more one of the easier ones to get, and even then it can be a little hard, right?
Yeah, for
So,
sure. This is great. It opens up a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes you have it permanently. Is
So
that
next,
good?
let's talk legendaries. Let me see. One of them, the aspect of Unrelenting Fury here, is one worth calling out, where again you're going to get a benefit when hitting bosses. So now it's useful.
I don't like how they skip. So let's see. Aspect of Ancestral Force. So 8% on the... Just 8% increase, does I guess. Death Wish Thorns increase? Okay. Unrelenting Fury. Core skills cost to refund increased. Core skills cost to refund. I don't know what that means. Is it how much they get back? Like, do you refund 20%, or is it the cost to... That doesn't make sense to me. I do like that it also works when you're hitting bosses, though. That's cool. Like, it probably has some sort of like you get X back per enemy you hit, or you have to hit X amount of enemy and then you get back or something. Ancestral Charge, more buffs to charge. There might be a charge coming in. Burning Rage. 0.22 to 0.3. Okay. Aspect of Bolcathos. Damage done while in earthquakes. Okay. Oh, that's a big DR actually. Damage bonus in earthquake. Okay, so you have a damage bonus while you're in earthquakes. That's cool.
One part of the game that it wasn't used in at all. Another one is the aspect of, or 2 earthquake aspects there at the bottom, Bulkathos and Earthquake. We're increasing the amount of damage reduction and damage bonus. So if you want to do that Earthquake build, like I said before, we want those earthquakes to do damage and be meaningful. But in the meantime, while you're standing in them, those buffs on you are going to be a little bit more powerful. So hopefully we can incentivize people to go through that fantasy.
That's pretty good. Like, they have something that's not quite working, and they're gonna try and make it at least be interesting until they get it working. All right, Fields of Crimson. Damage increased. Don't know what that means. Damage that enemies take standing in pool. Okay. Rupture cooldown reduction affix replaced with bonus critical strike damage. Oh, the Hellhammer. Oh, these are their uniques. Right. Okay, so Fields of Crimson is a unique. So instead of rupture cooldown reduction, you get bonus critical strike damage. Are they just gonna get critical strike damage on all the fucking shit? Okay, well, Hellhammer, we heard about that, right? So damage is increased. Duration increased from 3 to 4. Okay. Ramaladni's Magnum's Opus. Ramaladni. You get another gem. Physical damage affix replaced with vulnerable damage. Okay. 100,000 steps. Attacks reduced evade cooldown affix replaced with bonus evade charges. Okay, so you get the intrinsic one. So these are boots, and instead of having the cooldown reduced, you just get more. And then you get movement speed instead of damage against stunned. That's probably pretty good. Battle trance. Basic skill damage affix replaced with cooldown reduction. Oh, shit. You get cooldown. Ooh, okay. Bonus attack speed, so other skills increased. Oh, that's a big increase. Holy shit.
All right, next, so uniques. We've got a lot of stuff here with barbarian uniques. Again, the high-level goal here is we're generally improving just the base thing the unique does, and then also trying to replace an item stat that wasn't very attractive or not as attractive with one that we know players really, really like to make these meaningful for them. So Fields of Crimson, this is the one where you do blood pools when you rupture enemies. We're increasing the damage. We're increasing the damage that enemies take standing in pools, which is a pretty big buff. And then we're also changing the rupture cooldown reduction with bonus crit strike damage. And again, combine that with the bonus in the key passive.
Is that good though?
The
From
bleed
11 to
damage,
70, right?
yeah, where that scales better. That'll just be quite a bit more damage across
That's awesome.
the board. Hellhammer we talked about. Ramalandi's Magnum Opus, we're replacing the physical damage affix with vulnerable damage. 100,000 steps. The base affix of the boots, we're replacing the evade cooldown affix with just more evade charges. And then we're also replacing the damage against stun enemies with bonus movement speed.
That sounds like boots you'd use. I don't know what they do. I don't know what the unique effect is. Oh, we're in rogue now.
I was just going to say, we said that we were going to buff Sorceress and Barbarian. We're going to make some changes in 1.1. But Adam, you've been working
You're also going to buff
we don't wanna leave
rogues
the other
that are
three
currently
classes out,
probably
right?
the
Yeah,
strongest.
totally.
Most of these changes that you've seen are First Orc and Barb. But I think we had some time to make some changes to the other classes
We
too.
totally did, so we can go on here. One thing I do want to call out, though, the focus of the patch is the Sorcerer or the Barbarian, so you're going to see a lot more for them, but we wanted to give the other classes something exciting as well. Rogues are actually, I think, eating pretty well right now, so they're pretty good, but we still found some things of underused things to buff. Probably one of the more
Rogues
big
are the
ones
best,
here is
so we're
Forceful
buffing something
Arrow.
else
We're changing the
in their kit,
functionality
so.
here that every time that you cast, third cast of the arrow just pierces all enemies, which is a pretty big just generic bonus. We got some feedback on Rain of Arrows that it was kind of weird that the second wave was the one that knocked all the enemies down, because a lot of times, you cast a skill and the combat is in a certain state where the enemies are where you want to hit them and probably where you want to CC them, because you usually want to group stuff up to CC them. But because it happens on the second wave, the first wave comes, does a little damage to everything.
They all move.
And then they all move, and then everything falls apart, right?
That makes
this
sense.
Makes it more reliable.
That makes sense.
It sets itself up.
It sets itself up, yeah, exactly. Here, let me look if there's anything noteworthy. There's some buffs to things that are underused.
Isn't Ciphering Strikes really powerful? Maybe it's not. I thought it
the
was.
aspect of Elusive Menace no longer requires hits to be from close enemies, so again, we're just
So you
making
can
things more
get it
generically
yiked from
usable.
distant. Okay.
And then for uniques, kind of similar to Barbarian, we found some room here to make a couple stats replaced with things that we know are really,
All
really
stats
attractive. So
affect
Reinforce,
vulnerable.
replacing
Holy
all
shit.
stats
Ultimate
affects with
cooldown
bonus
reduction.
damage. And then
Jesus.
the
Some
Word
buffs
Baton,
to
we
those
replace
things.
ultimate damage with cooldown reduction.
Ooh. Oh, Druid.
So
That's
Druid,
me.
kind of similar to what I said about the Barbarian, about that early game kind of feeling a little bit slow. We're also improving all of the spirit generation of the.
Okay, so I'm getting one more. I'm using Storm Strikes. I'm getting one more. Earth Spike, 2 more. Claw, 1 more. I will be using Claw, I believe, in the end game. Maybe. I'm using Storm Strike right now. Wind Shear, I haven't used. Maul. That's when you're in bear, right? And then they're buffing wolves. Well, I guess you have to buff wolves because people are. You have made a hard. The only fucking druid hard is wolves, and it's dog shit. Alright, so big buffs to wolves, I guess. Passive damage, they do no passive damage, so I think you could buff their passive damage by 100% and it'll still be shit. Active damage increase from 100. The active damage does a bit of them. So 5% of enhanced will pack brutal, 5% on the attack. And then ferocious, 45 amount increase. I mean, yeah, I mean, they want to make wolves happen, right? Because they put it in a heart, but that heart is just dog, I guess. But, I mean, in my opinion, at least, it's boring.
You're just going to be able to get to those core skill casts a little bit easier.
That's
We're
nice,
also
though.
improving the passive damage generally of a lot of their companion skills. So your wolves are going to feel better. The both passive and active damage is going up. The upgrades for the wolves are all going to be a little bit more powerful.
Let's hope it's enough. I don't think it
And
is.
then same thing for ravens. Their passive damage is going up. And then
Oh,
brutal ravens. This is the one that gives you another little, a couple more little ravens to go peck your enemies to death. They're also going to peck a little bit harder. So a little bit more.
Oh, but you're not. Oh, so you're not buffing the ones that's actually good. The creepers.
We know that poison druid, like just if I want to do pure poison druid, is a little bit behind. So we're really targeting rabies as a pretty meaty upgrade there in its damage. This will also, by the way, improve the legendary. I think it's legendary where your wolves can cast rabies. That's also going to be improved by this.
Okay.
So just that whole archetype will be better. And then for legendaries and the class mechanic, we're just buffing some things that are a little bit underutilized, so they'll just be stronger. And then necromancer. So
I didn't catch what they were doing there. Let me just check real quick. There. So aspect of metamorphic stone. Spirit cost 60 to 50. Damage dealt increased from to 20. Aspect of is that whenever you use? Wait, what is that? I thought. I'm not sure what that is. I thought that was when you use this much. Wait, is that the one that turns your boulder into a? Is that what turns your boulder into a core skill? I think. That thing's fucking cool. I love boulder. Boulder's fucking cool. You're just fucking bowling. Just fucking take all the mobs with you. It's fucking cool. I used it for a little bit and I love the shit out of it. I might want to make a build out of that. That's fucking cool. Aspect of the alpha. Damage increased. Is that you gain a damage increase for every wolf you have or every companion or something? Mangled aspect. Resource gain or whatever. Overload. Lucky hit chance increased. Okay.
whole archetype will be better.
Okay, let's see what's next.
And then for legendaries and the class mechanic,
Oh,
sorry,
I went back too far.
So they'll just be stronger. And then necromancer. So here we've got quite a few things going on. Bone spirit. This is the enhanced bone spirit, which is where when you crit enemies with the bone spirit, you get cooldown reduction. We're increasing that from 6 to 7 seconds, so it should be a little more friendly to players.
Are they putting in new legendaries?
The Wither legendary upgrade here, this is the one where your shadow dot damage is going up. And we added a new way to scale that damage in the legendary space.
Holy buff, actually. So, willpower required for bonus reduced from 50 to 40, and the bonus damage per 40 willpower is increased. Jesus.
We got feedback that this really just wasn't scaling enough to be meaningful, even when you invested a lot into willpower.
Well, so now it is, I
You're
guess.
just going to get a lot more bang for your buck. You're going to do... The requirement is less, so you're going to get more procs of the increase to your
That's a fucking buff, holy shit.
Chance to proc that damage, and then also just your bonus damage straight up is going to be better. So the shadow builds should be a lot better. Empowering Reaper, we got some feedback that totally makes sense to me now, and a year ago me should have thought of this. But the way that this used to work was Sever would spawn a pool of blight under enemies, and the chance was based on you critting them. So the idea was you would create a crit build, and then you turn your crit into these pools of damage, right? That sounds kind of cool. But
yeah,
it turns
but
out,
the pools don't crit.
Doesn't work with dots at all. So that pool doesn't get scaled with the way that you make the pool. So it just doesn't work design-wise. I take the blame for that. But now we're changing it so you just have to damage enemies to spawn those pools of blight. So now this can actually be more friendly to dot builds.
Okay.
And then aspect of exposed flesh. This one used to have the same effect, but only when hitting vulnerable enemies with bone skills. So now you can just get we have a new resource mechanic for all the necromancer specs that aren't bone.
Okay.
And then here, let me see.
So this is what they meant when they were opening up aspects to more. It literally meant that they put one more thing on some Zork things and then that one. I was so excited and I am so disappointed, but it might be for the future, but I'm so fucking disappointed. And then just a buff to aspects of decay. Aspect of torment as regeneration increased. Holy, okay. From 20 to 30 to 90 to 170%. Excuse me. That's a hefty change, or Hulking aspect. Category change from resource to utility. Okay. Chance for golem to reduce cooldown increased. I wonder if I wonder if that's a buffer. But resource is only on rings, right? So utility means that you can put it on boots. So this is probably a buff. Graves of the Empty Tomb. Intelligence affix replaced with bonus move speed. That doesn't seem that good. You want intelligence, right? I mean, you want movement speed as well, but that seems like there would be things there you'd rather lose. Maybe I'm wrong.
Probably one of the big ones to call, even though it's just a number buff, is Aspect of Torment. That Essence regeneration was just woefully undertuned, so we increase it pretty significantly.
That would be, you don't say.
This one, I'm hoping gets to see more play. This used to be a resource legendary, which looking at it now, was a little weird, because it doesn't actually give you resource, it's just cooldown reduction on the golem skill.
It does also give you corpses.
Now you can put this like on your boots and other places that you didn't have to, and it doesn't have to take that prime ring slot to use this legendary.
That makes sense.
We're also updating the effect a little bit to be stronger. And then for uniques, kind of similar to what I said before, the Greaves of the Empty Tomb, we're changing the bonus intelligence affix to be replaced with bonus move speed, which I know is particularly attractive for necromancer players.
Yeah, but Intis as well, right?
For
necromancers. Well, necromancers, they may want mobility a little bit.
Usually the slower individuals.
Oh, they're buffing minion defensives.
I'll put them out a little bit. Here, this is a monster change, but it impacts minions really, so Necromancer and Druid. But these attacks now from the Balrog and some elite affixes are going to be dealing reduced damage to Necromancer minions and Druid
I don't think they needed an entire slide for this, but yay.
And then now we got some of our generic updates. We only have a couple of them. The first one is to a Malignant Heart. This is the Caged Heart of Spellbreaking.
Oh,
and this one
it's not resistances anymore.
When you took elemental damage, you gained damage resistance to that element, right? It was thematic to reducing only that element. But we found that was really, really narrow. Again, trying to open things up so it's not so narrowly useful that you're not going to ever take it. So now it's just going to give you just generic damage reduction.
But you still have to take damage for it, so I hope they can survive still.
And then our last one here for item updates is Temerity. So we got a lot of feedback on this one. It's funny because when we launched the game, we thought that this item was crazy and going to be really, really good.
That's the legs that give you a barrier when you overheal. Okay, so all stats affix replaced with max life makes sense because of what it is. Barrier is now based on maximum life. Okay, so it's no longer what you overheal for. It's okay. Now probably encountered by condition checking for the player having a barrier. What? Okay.
But then we realized due to the stats on it that it just wasn't hitting the attractiveness that we wanted. So even though this terrifies me, we're going to bump it up and see how it goes. But we're going to replace the all stats affix with bonus max life. The barrier is now also going to be scaling with your maximum life. And it'll probably be working with other barrier legendaries where, you need a barrier to do certain procs and things. This will now proc with that as well.
Oh, it wasn't before? Then it was dog shit before.
To this item, and hopefully we'll see it in your max life and increasive healing builds.
I don't like how every single thing getting buffed terrifies him though. Like, you're supposed to fucking have fun, right? And always reel it back next season if it's too much.
Yeah, so we have a ton of updates coming to the classes.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
We literally just went through it.
Dude, there's still 40 minutes left.
Encyclopedia of stuff.
I suck at this.
Especially on the Barb and Sorcerer classes. But I will say that it's nice that we got some stuff in for the Rogue, Necromancer, and Druid players as well. Making sure that we kind of buffed up some of the more
I think Rogues and Druids are fucking chilling.
One more caveat to all of that. I should have said this at the beginning. It's not final yet.
Not final
This
yet.
is planned.
The
odds are very high. We do 90% of it or most of it, maybe even all. But as we get into the weeds of things and we're updating things, some things may change. So this is our plan. It's very likely it'll be at least most of it, if not all of it. But it's not completely in the game yet, so
there might be some number tweaks, basically.
We always add a small caveat just because things are still going through testing right now on our side.
Correct.
And we want to make sure
testing, all that stuff.
Yeah,
so.
we want to make sure we're not completely.
I'm very careful. I always caveat, not final until you see it in the game.
Adam's being very cautious about it.
I am very cautious.
It's not going to be. You're not going to experience something that's totally different from what you just saw.
That's right. That's also why we're not releasing patch notes today, and we're going to actually discuss when patch notes will be released later on the stream. So we'll reveal that.
And one thing I do want to note is because I'm seeing this a little bit in chat, and people are going hey, you guys are adjusting some tweaks with, like, for instance, like druid summons and their minions. Same thing with, like, there's a lot of questions about, like, hey, what's the overall plan on, like, minion builds and so forth in the future? Is that something you guys are still going to want to work on, look at in the future?
I could talk about this for a very long time.
I did say that I think Adam Fletcher should be the host, but holy crap, does he take a while to formulate his points? And I shouldn't speak because I do the exact same, but holy crap.
Yes. Druid and Necromancer are a little bit different, so I guess I'll talk Necromancer first. So Necromancer minions is absolutely a core fantasy of Necromancer players, that minions are cool and awesome, and that you can raise the dead and have the dead fight for you. That is core. Minions, it turns out, in all games, not just ours, or summons or all that, are very complicated and hard to make work. They have a lot of moving parts that are different than every other class and build archetype in many games. They have AI, they have a passive and active component to them typically. There's a lot going on. So in this patch, we're not touching the Necromancer stuff a lot. It is on the team's radar of looking at the ways that they scale, looking at the ways that things proc with them, looking at just the combination of passive versus active activity that we want the player to do there. So there's definitely a lot going on there. We are thinking about it. There will be stuff coming, but no promises on when, but we are actively talking about it. Druid is a little bit different because from the ground up, the class fantasy is not only minions, right? It's like a specific build and way to play. One of the things that we were concerned about when launching the game is we didn't want the Druid to like have just as many or more companions than the Necromancer, and they're stronger. It's like, well, where's the fantasy of the Necromancer if the Druid does it better, right? So that was something that we contended with a lot, I'm sure.
Why the fuck would you give it to it then? The fuck's the point of adding minions? If they're not meant to be strong enough, what the fuck's the point? If the Necromancer is the minion class and they have to have superior minions, why the fuck would you add minions to any other class? Then they need to be a support thing, and I don't think they are.
Sure that we're going to flex on that over time. We did add support. We still love companions on Druid, and we will absolutely be making it more of a thing, hence why we're buffing them a lot in this patch. But we are careful about the design space and the fantasy of the different classes, right? We don't want all the classes to be exactly the same.
Why the fuck did you give them minions then, dude? Like, you could have just not given it companions. If you don't want them to have companions because Necro is the companion build, then don't fucking give them What the fuck? What am I listening to? I'm being harsh, but that sounded fucking dumb. Oh, Necromancer is the minion build, so Druids can't have as many or as powerful minions. So basically, you just added fucking what is it? There's ravens, there's poison creepers, there's wolves. Is there another one? There's wolves. I said wolves. What the fuck? Is there only 3? Is there only 3? Why did you add them then? Like, excuse me? I'm baffled. Like, either they need to be just as much of a skill as the Necromancer minions, or you need to make them fulfill some other thing like resource gen, vulnerability, something, crit gen, or buffs, like make them support things, or don't put them in the game.
Because then you don't feel different when you're playing. You don't have new interesting mechanics that are between them. We talk about that a lot on the team. It's very easy to be like, hey, just this class doesn't have this and it's fun, give it to all the others, right? I think Necromancer and move speed is part of that, where we overcorrected a little bit, where like we didn't want them to have a teleport or dash, right, like a rogue. If Necromancers are dashing around everywhere, that's a weird fantasy, right? But not giving them enough movement speed options at all, I think, is something that we're coming back on.
Yeah.
So, but it's a push and pull, right? It's on a spectrum of how far do we go to go into another class's fantasy or an archetype that doesn't make sense fantasy-wise versus keeping true to the core and finding clever ways to fix it, or we can't fix it and we do need to bend a little bit. And it's always a conversation.
It's also interesting to see that the feedback, particularly on Druid companions, like we knew that they were really cool, but like the number of Druid players who are looking for more ways to kind of make more companion-focused builds is maybe a little bit higher than we expected.
Yes.
So this is one of those situations where, like, kind of in response to the fact that players are really hoping, like, Druid players are looking to go after this fantasy of, like, I am the master of the animal kingdom, and I'm going to have all these and nature, right? I'm going to have all these buddies with me. I think it's kind of like moving our hand a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, actually, there is something really cool here. There is fantasy here for us to really latch onto and more that we can do. But to Adam's
Absolutely.
point, it's still very important we make sure that the Necromancer feels distinct and the Druid feels distinct after these changes go in.
Correct.
That's
It's
fair.
an eternal struggle for us on class design.
Sure.
Yeah. We also have a lot of like quality of life items that we wanted to talk about that we actually kind of hit on last week
Oh, sure.
when we were talking on the Campfire Chat that would be coming in 1.1.1. And I know we wanted to talk a little bit more about those here.
Stash
I
tab.
know we have some changes coming for like
Fucking silence
Yeah,
the peasants.
yeah, I wanna talk
Give
about
us the
monster
stash tab.
So we've said a few times now that we're going to increase monster density in Nightmare Dungeons and Helltides. These changes are in 1.1.1.
Oh, I thought they were
we
live already.
said, like we said last week. And I think we have an image of an example of a Nightmare Dungeon that. So this is how it is today.
Yeah.
If you go into Nostravus Deepwood, of course, monsters are going to not be exactly like this, but this
I thought they said they buffed them in a hotfix. Did that go through? Or am I stupid? Maybe I'm stupid.
is an example of it. And then in 1.1.1, it's going to change, so you can see a lot more monsters here.
There it is.
And this is really going
Wait, that doesn't seem that significant. Am I stupid? Okay, so here it is.
example of it. And then in 1.1.1, it's going to
Maybe I'm just looking in the wrong spots. Where am I at? See if we can find like 53 was good. Okay, so here is nothing, so that's gonna get buffed. Here was nothing, that's gonna get buffed up. But I feel like there's a lot here, but it's gonna get just moved. Not a lot here. Nothing here, nothing here. A lot here. Not a lot of nothing, lot of nothing, lot of nothing, lot of nothing.
example of it. And then in 1.1.1, it's going
Still a lot of nothing. Not that many here. They kind of just moved up here. A lot here. There's nothing. There was a bit here, but then it's all out here. I mean, I guess. There's still a lot of nothing here. Still a lot of nothing here. Still a lot of nothing here. Here. Maybe I don't that. I thought it was going to be more than that, but it's whatever.
to change, so you can see a lot more monsters here.
There it is.
And this is really going back to, we
There's
talked
just
about
one
our,
lonely boy down here.
Our mission statement for the live game of after you've achieved your build, being able to go in and mow down large numbers of enemies.
And
deal
you're
with
going to
large
be able
numbers
to
of
do that
enemies.
here.
It's sort of a core part of an ARPG.
Oh, also
so we
up
want
there.
to make sure
Fair.
that we're delivering, especially in the end game content.
Well, thank
So
you for creating
that's
two
how to look
spots.
for Nightmare Dungeons. On Helltide, we've been doing the same thing, increasing density. As I said last week, there are some areas of Helltide that are highly dense, and we want to make sure that all of our players across all of the different platforms that we support can enjoy this increased density. So it's not just the people with the absolute top-end equipment. So we've also been making sure that as we bump up these densities, that we're doing it in a way that performance stays reasonable. So you can actually, like, if we bump up density and then the game turns into a slideshow, we didn't actually make the game more fun, even though there are a lot of monsters. So it needs to stay performant at the same time. So we've been working on that at the same time so that we can really hit that target. And this is something too that when 1.1 comes, 1.1.
Fine.
1.1.1.
We gotta have like
Triple one.
We gotta have a different name for these patch notes. For these patches, it's fine. It's fine.
He lost his train of thought.
When that comes out, we're going to be looking at the density there and seeing how close it comes to this mission statement, this goal, right? And if it's not hitting this goal, then we're going to keep working toward that goal. So we really want to make sure that it's capturing that fantasy of mowing down hordes of enemies.
Yeah, it's a great goal for us to line ourselves around too, right? So once we're able to capture more data from players on live, we can see how players with different like PC specs are able to interact with some of these spaces. It's going to continue to inform us and let us do more and more double down some of these decisions as we go.
And then I know we have some changes coming.
So basically what they're
in
saying
regards
is
to bosses and so forth
performance
as well.
hinders
That's right.
how many
So we did
mobs.
talk
They
about
can't
this
just
last
throw
week.
100
We have
mobs
gotten
at
a lot
us.
of feedback
Fine.
before about the about players, particularly like in World Tiers 3 and 4, fighting like dungeon bosses and world bosses, and being able to go in there with their enhanced power. Now they've got like some uniques online. Their build has really come online. And they've got like a lot of like damage to vulnerable targets. You know, like they're mowing through some of these bosses faster than we expect, right? So, or rather, fast enough that's not really challenging and not really engaging. So we are boosting the health of bosses in World Tiers 3 and 4 at brackets as you're kind of going up in experience. But you know, in exchange for this, in exchange for making some of these pieces just a little bit harder as players are going through them, we are also going to be making a change to the rewards that you get from going through these.
Yeah.
So now, like after 1.1.1 goes live, dungeon bosses starting at level 35 even. So this is before you can get into World Tiers 3 and 4. And then it's the so once you've done that, or once you've killed those, you're gonna have a guaranteed legendary item drop.
Okay.
In space, and that's gonna carry up as well into World Tiers 3 and 4. When you complete a Legion event, that's gonna also give you a guaranteed legendary drop starting at level 35. You know, there's a chance before 35, but it's guaranteed at level 35. You're going to have one pop in.
Okay.
And then another Butcher has a 100% chance to drop a legendary as well, because he's a boss, of course. And then another really big one is we got, and this is funny. I did it. Please don't follow me on Twitter unless you really want to see a lot of nerdy stuff. But I did a Twitter poll a while ago where I basically just said you know, what do you think is the chance at which
I saw that one, yeah,
will drop a legendary item? And I said it was like, you know, 10%, 25%, 40%, 50% with the 4 options. The majority of players voters, I should say, right, all selected 10% was the chance, and everybody had their own, you know, their feelings on it as they were kind of going through it. But the reality is at level, and I said level 50 Treasure Goblin as part of this, but the reality is they have a 50% chance to drop legendary items today. And that's like going back to like level 35. They've got a very, very high chance to drop legendary items, but so
what you're saying is sometimes I kill a treasure goblin and it doesn't drop a legendary item.
That's correct. That's exactly right. So basically, if you flip a quarter every 25 minutes, you know, that's basically your chance to get a legendary item when you're fighting treasure goblins in the overworld. And it's very easy to have like tails 5 times in a row, and then
that's what happens to me every time.
And as humans, we are 7 times more likely to remember a negative thing than a positive thing. So this is nothing wrong with rather there's nothing wrong with the player's perception of treasure goblins not feeling rewarding. You don't see them that frequently relative to other content types, and when you don't get a legendary item from something called a treasure goblin, that can feel bad. So what we decided to do is we've gone back and said, starting right at level 15 for treasure goblins, 15, they have a guaranteed legendary item drop chance when you kill one from that point forward. So now when you see treasure goblins in the map, you start hearing them like snortling around in the corners of your screen. You know you need to go fight that.
No, that's good at least. Like treasure goblins needs to be fucking dope.
So we think that's gonna be like a really fun like update to kind of help
that's
get these things across. 50% isn't useful in this case. 100%, absolutely. We want you to feel like you're getting that power.
No more coin flip. No more coin flip.
Yeah, actually, probably more than 50% more fun.
I will note, Joe missed a wonderful opportunity to drag in Gabi, the goblin.
The treasure goblin
into the frame.
Should I try?
We have a plush treasure goblin just off screen.
We have a very large plush.
Here's this giant treasure goblin that absolutely doesn't fit on camera
Look how happy he is.
And now he's off camera
now,
staring at Joe as he's literally talking about.
We have a lot of other stuff to discuss.
Staring at Joe as he's literally talking about killing him. So yeah,
they're happy to be of help.
It is a plush. It is a plush creature, so yeah.
I know, and so we talked more about, or you actually.
Are they gonna sell plushes or
when we were on the stream last week? Sorry, about 2 weeks in a row, you guys. We talked about respecs and so forth. So I know that is also coming in.
Yeah,
in 1.1.1.
we just want to confirm that the stuff we said last week, we're going to reduce respec cost by 40%. Players are going to get an extra stash tab. And Elixir stat count is going to go up to 99.
Yeah, and the stash tab is just purchasable by gold.
That's right.
So that's just to make sure that people don't think we're just selling it.
Tab 1's 100K, Tab 2's 200K, Tab 3's 300K, Tab 4's going to be 400K. So you can buy that for your seasonal stash and for your eternal stash.
Yes, exactly. And then, one
you're
other
not
thing
selling
that,
it yet.
we did want to talk about, because this was a question that came up last week in regards to like the leaving dungeon options and teleporting out of dungeons and
Taking
so
the 2 seconds off.
And I know you wanted to talk more about that here today.
I don't know. I think I explained it pretty well last time.
So clear.
So clear.
There's a loop there. I don't know why anyone's confused. This is very clear. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to change it back to 3 seconds.
Yes.
Basically, the reason that we increased this is we have, in Diablo 4, we have a mechanic where when you're casting some kind of spell or power and you get hit by some damage, you don't get interrupted immediately. You have to take about 5% of your health and damage before it gets interrupted. And this makes things like town portaling back to town, leave dungeon, etc., feel a lot better.
Saving a prisoner.
Saving a prisoner, absolutely, yeah.
Every time.
So if you're taking like really incidental damage, it's
Yeah, not if you're playing a Sork, because anything will do more than 5% damage, but do go on, Joe.
not going to get interrupted. But we were worried about a case where you're in the middle of a high-intensity combat fight or in the middle of a boss fight, and we felt like it was a little bit too easy to get out of that in terms, and that's actually what it's referring to with the loop, which again, I felt like I nailed it, but I guess you know, and so. You know, there are other ways that we could have solved that, right? We could have said like, oh, well, you get pushback on your cast, or like, oh, well, it's only increased to 5 seconds if you're in a boss fight or something like that. But ultimately, you know, what players really accurately pointed out is, look, this slows down the core loop of the game in a way that's not fun.
Yeah.
So we're just changing it back to 3 seconds.
Yeah. So it was at 3 seconds, went to 5 seconds, going back to 3 seconds because. You know, obviously, good player feedback, from everyone. So
I've got one more bonus thing to talk about too. So, so we've been getting a lot of feedback, obviously, on the.
Okay, I don't know what to. I heard a take that they increased it to 5 seconds because they're gonna sell fucking teleport skins. I thought that was better. The whole like milking player retention, I'm not sure I buy that, but there was a fun take as well. Yeah, if we're gonna make them, if we make them spend 2 seconds more per dungeon, it's gonna take them a lot longer to realize that this is all there is to Diablo endgame.
Endgame experience tiers 3 and 4, and you know, Nightmare Dungeons are a really big part of that. Last week we talked about how we were going to be ensuring that the
can't get repetitive as fast if you're repeating slower.
The Nightmare Dungeon difficulty was scaled more appropriately.
Right.
So now, like, you know, the tier 70 difficulty was the old version. Rather, the old version of tier 70 is now the tier 100 after the changes that we made to more accurately reflect the balance we have in Diablo 4 versus the kind of insane overtuned stuff we had prior for the tier 70 plus content. One other thing that we obviously are thinking about, like, you know, the scaling difficulty is one part of this, you know, but we also get plenty of feedback on some of the Nightmare Dungeon affixes themselves.
Yes.
We know that some of these
some of them suck ass.
Ones you're going to want to basically throw in the trash right away. So
yes.
You're going to want to salvage these and get Citadel Dust immediately upon.
And it really sucks because it's the one you spend a lot of development time in terms of graphical assets. The ones we want are the ones we don't really see, like Poison affix. It doesn't do fucking jack. I mean, maybe it does, but the ones we don't want to see is the Storm Banes, whatever, where you fucking animated this whole thing and coded it to follow you around, coded it to teleport at certain things, and coded it to come around on a timer and stop at a certain distance from your character and then go out a boom and then wait a bit and go out another boom. That one, nobody's fucking playing.
When some of these things kind of pop up. So a couple of the ones that we're actually going to be, for now, we're removing a few of these.
Storm Bane.
Think about reworking them or deciding what we want to do with them. But we're going to be taking these out in 1.1.1. They're not going to appear anymore. That is so the first is Resource Drain. It's not going to be showing up.
Yes, please. That fucking sucks ass. That is the worst. I thought it was the bigger one. I forgot about that one. That one's fucking ass. I never play Resource Drain. Thank you.
Anymore. Cold Enchanted is not going to be showing up in Nightmare Citadels anymore.
I never cared about Cold Enchanted, and especially not after they nerfed it. Like, Cold Enchanted, yeah, I get it. It's fucking dangerous. If you get hit, you get fucking blown up, right? That's fine. I get that. But they reduced the amount of time it takes for Cold Enchanted, so I thought it wasn't as difficult. I usually play Cold Enchanted. I don't usually get frozen or die to it, but I have only played Zorik, so maybe I'm privileged. But I mean, there's a lot of I don't know that I agree with that one, but I get because it's only hardcore characters that are not going to play that one. I don't think it's a problem for, but maybe it is if you're pushing for sure, but maybe I'm wrong.
For a bit, and then Backstabber is being.
So they're not taking out the Stormbane. Backstabber is also shit, but
removed as well as part of 1.1.1.
But I always play Backstabber as well, and it's fine. But I guess higher tiers. I was doing like 62s and 63s with Cold Enchanted, with Backstabber, and all of those, and it was piss easy. And that's if a 70 is going to be 100, then a 62 is going to be what, 90, 85ish. That's pretty good, yeah.
Now, this is not by any means an exhaustive list of the things we'd want to like adjust on the Aptic side. There's lots more that we want to do to kind of improve this experience. This is just sort of like while we're in here beginning to look at these things, we know that these are problematic. We have adjustments we want to make anyway. We want to go ahead and pull these out and just make the experience better today for players.
That's good.
Yep.
I like that.
Cool. Awesome to hear. I know that.
Would have liked you to see take Stormbane's Wrath as well. I would also have liked you to see the one with the fucking dome that makes me stand still for fucking 4 seconds.
A lot of players have been giving feedback about specific Nightmare Dungeon affixes and everything. So it's great that we've been able to jump on a few of the ones that we know are problematic with the community and kind of pull them out and reevaluate and see what we can end up doing with those. So we did, obviously we talked about the date for the patch notes beforehand.
I don't know what you mean.
But we do want to specify that we are going to be releasing patch notes, full patch notes next week. It's actually going to be on August 2nd next week on Wednesday. We'll be releasing full patch notes. And then
Why do you release so much content when I'm not fucking available? So you release the seasonal you release the season on my anniversary with my girlfriend, and then 3 days later I'm going on a vacation for a week. And now you're releasing patch notes on my girlfriend's birthday. I feel personally attacked by the Diablo team.
1 is going to be coming out on August 12th, which is Tuesday. So players will. Did I get those dates right? Yes.
August 12th?
I'm doing this by memory. I'm doing it by memory.
No idea.
So. I've seen so many calendars in the last day.
Tuesday after.
Oh, sorry. It is I lied. It is August 8th.
Yeah.
See, this is dates.
Everything's a blur.
My head.
August 8th. So that's like a little over a week away. Okay.
August 8th.
Sorry, August 2nd is when the patch notes will be coming out in full, and then August 8th is when the patch will actually hit. Sorry, I apologize. I've had a lot of dates in my head over the past couple of weeks.
Sorry,
so,
we buffed the date.
Buffed the
We
date.
buffed the date.
That's
Just
also
like
part of the
Twitter
patch notes. So players will be able to see everything next Wednesday. We'll be posting those, so make sure to stay tuned. Of course, on the Diablo social media, etc. We'll end up updating the patch notes there, so players can see it. Just remember, the patch is not that day. We're just posting the notes early so that players can actually see them. This goes back to exactly how we were talking about that we want to better communicate these notes here, similar to how we're doing this here on this Campfire Chat. And then, of course, August 8th is when the patch will end up going live for all players.
This is damage control,
experience it
brother.
and
I know.
all the
But
changes that
let's go.
we're kind of detailing out here, and they'll be seeing in the final patch notes on Wednesday.
it's good though.
next week.
They've learned. Like posting the
We
patch
do
notes
wanna
early is
jump into
good.
Q&A because we just went through a whole bunch of stuff right here.
All right,
I
Q&A
know
time.
one
Let's see what they
question
have.
That as we start to populate questions, feel free to ask them in chat on Twitch, by the way, because we have chat enabled there. But I know one question and something that we talked about last week, as we're waiting for questions to kind of come in, was about XP in later game, or for late game players and stuff like that. Do we have any update and in regards to that specific topic?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So we did talk about this last week, and what we said then was that we are not looking to make the game feel slower across the board. We're not looking to slow down the players' XP gain rate in response to feedback about some of the other changes that we had made.
But you literally did it though. But go on.
The goal was really, we want to make sure the players are having a good time progressing through World Tiers 3 and 4, not feeling like they're hitting a point where it's really, really difficult to make progress.
I will say though, leveling hasn't felt that slow, and I think people are leveling really quickly. So I'm not sure what they did, but they did literally make it slower, numerically.
So in response to some of these thoughts, we had gone through and we had raised the amount of experience that you gain from before the 1.1 patch went out. We raised the amount of experience gain you get from Nightmare Dungeon completion, from Helltide cache opening,
right.
From Whisper completion. Like we went and did a good buff on those activities to make them feel juicier as part of that. And now we're going through and we're updating density inside the Nightmare Dungeons and in Helltide areas as well. So all this to say, we are committed to increasing the speed at which the players be progressing through these later world tiers. We're not happy with the speed at which players are getting through some of this content and the kinds of behavior it's incentivizing as a result of that, right? We want to make sure that players feel that they can play the way that they want and they can progress at a decent pace. But now that we've made a number of these changes, we do want to see what the impact's going to be on the overall XP gain rate across the board for players, and just seeing how
wait and
players
see.
are progressing. So
I thought they said they increased the density in a hotfix. I might be dumb. I thought they said that. I was so sure that was what the hotfix was gonna contain. A density increase to specifically nightmare sigils. But maybe I'm just completely off. I was sure that's what they're doing, but yeah, I mean, so you're nerfed until August 8th, and 8th, I can't say that, holy shit. And then hopefully density will outweigh the nerf.
When we go through and we make changes, which we will be making soon, I think probably likely for season 2, when we go through and we make these changes, that's going to be informed by what we see players going through.
But fair.
Experiences like now.
Yeah.
I don't think he should say soon, because it's still, 2 months away? I respect what he's saying, and I'm fine with it. What he's saying is they're going to make the changes once they have data to look at. I don't think he should say soon, because that gives you a time frame that's like, oh, it's coming in a few weeks.
So it's really just a question of how much are we going to make adjustments, what's going to feel right. And that's going to be based on what we see from players.
We have 2 people actually asking pretty similar questions, but one was specifically calling out Adam Jackson and his thoughts on this. But but they both are very similar questions. One is from Febzilla, the other one's from Karnaga.
I'm so sorry. Can I just jump in really quick? Can I ask chat a question? Do you, yes or no, do you want Adam to read the names of people that he's getting the questions from the chat?
I think we should.
Adam.
Yes.
Okay, he's saying he should. Okay.
I think we should, just because I don't want to go into that whole situation
Oh,
where
fine,
that other outlet
Okay.
made up names, and we don't do that. So,
Sure.
But Karnaga and Febzillas, they both ask about.
It's also kind of cool if you get your question read, right? There's a bit of like, ooh, they're reading my question, right? I'm sure. And if you say you don't, you're full of bullshit, because you wouldn't have asked the question in the first place. There is a bit of like, ooh, my question. Or if they literally pick you for the question, there's a bit of like, ooh, oh, yes, read my name, bitch.
People are all like, no.
I knew it.
Well,
honestly, it would make my job so much easier.
I know.
I wish I
Please
could.
finish your
well,
question.
we're going to read these at least.
Read
But
these, yeah.
the question is about crowd control. Obviously, it is a huge and popular topic amongst the community. What are our thoughts about crowd control? What are we planning on doing about that here?
Please.
I bet we all have thoughts on that, actually.
We do, yeah.
Yes.
Let me
You
just
can
say
jump on
first
that,
that we think that as you get into situations where there are lots of monsters on screen and high-end areas where the amount of damage that you're seeing going in and out is really high, so you're having to react really quickly. Situations where you're being hard CC'd, or like stun or freeze or something like that, can be much more impactful than they are when the intensity and the pace of combat is lower. And so we want to make changes to CC to make that experience more fun. We want to do that. It's not in 1.1.1, but those are changes that we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's larger CC stuff that we're discussing internally that we want.
So we're always talking about CC to your character. One major thing you could do, give me a fucking timer or an indicator of when it's done. I don't care how you do it. If you don't want me to have a giant timer on my screen because immersion, then have, when I'm frozen, have me thaw out slowly. Have it melt so I can see, all right, I'm almost out. If I'm stunned, I have that swirly on my head. Maybe that can grow a little bit lower, right? If I'm slowed and it's there's a slow where it's like oil dripping off your character. Make it go away. Make it drip off so that when it's only down to my knees, I know, all right, I'm soon out. If I'm chilled, make it come up and I get blue in the face when it's, oh, I'm about to get frozen. Stuff like that. If you don't want to put a timer, but let me fucking see what's happening.
To kind of pair with a few other big changes we have planned in the future.
In fact, we're working on stuff like that for that right now.
Yeah.
There is a question.
But is that really the question? Because what about your character's crowd control? I thought that was the question to begin with. That was how I understood the initial question. Last campfire. Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe it is just people don't care about the crowd control they're throwing out. They only care about the crowd control they're receiving. Maybe I'm just wrong, but
Here regarding, it's my favorite question because I always get this. It's from Cookie Drops. So are you guys planning on addressing the issues related to like the imperfectly balanced on Necromancer, the decrep aura on Necromancer, and those are addressed in 1.1.1.
so are you planning on fixing things that doesn't work? Of course they are.
Those are we just didn't list all the
Dumb
bug
question.
fixes and stuff
There's
like
a
that.
whole lot of bug fixes.
Yeah, so you guys will see those with the final notes and everything, but those are addressed in this specific update, and it's something that I know a lot of people have been asking, going like, well, I can only add 1 point, yet it says I can add 3, and so forth. So most definitely being addressed in that. We've actually just been getting a general decent amount of questions related to resistances and what the intent is going to be with resistances here in the future. There's a ton of questions.
They're gonna make them fucking work in season 2.
Right? I guess like what's the vision on resistances here in the future?
I talked about it a little bit. The vision is kind of, I think, what the standard vision of most games is, which is everything is impactful and meaningful and feels good, and you invest and get rewarded for those things at all times. But, reality is a little bit harder than that, but that is kind of the North Star and what we're trying to do.
Fucking dumb question, man.
The idea is that when you invest in elemental resistances, you will notice a difference in the damage that you take. We don't want just, armor or damage reduction or any, king stat that is just way better than everything else. That's the only thing you care about. It is tough to find a perfect balance there of how impactful some things should be versus others, and then can you negate certain kinds of combat when you max things out or only focus on only one thing. And there's a lot of gray area there that we're talking about, but our goal is that, and when we go and really take a deep dive at it, is one, we don't want you to just stack armor and that's better than everything else. We don't want you to stack just like general damage resistance and that's just better than everything else. We want elemental resistances to be meaningful, but we also don't want to get to a place where, you fight a fire boss and you stack all fire resistances and it actually can't hurt you. Right? There's always a push and pull in this one.
The inverse of that is actually also really dangerous, which is that you're wandering through the game. You don't always know the kinds of creatures or affixes. Obviously, you don't know the kinds of affixes you're going to be dealing with. You've got 0% poison resistance, and you get basically one tick from a level 60 poison creature kills you.
Sure.
Right. It's like there's a balancing act. The team is, as we move forward, everything that Adam just said is 100% accurate. We want to make sure that the choices between armor for mitigation, for damage resistance based on passives, legendary powers, glyphs and paragon nodes, those things are impactful, and that resistance plays a really, really important role. The big difference here is that resistance is a thing that you are going to stack and earn separately, and that they're usually tied to affixes or inherent affixes on rings and jewelry. So it means that some players will be able to go and encounter situations where they are not going to have a predictable amount of resistance when they go into an encounter. Which means that we just need to think about what that is going to feel like for that player, and imagine a world where they are able to still complete the content, but it's much more effective to have the appropriate amount of resistance. We need to make that feel impactful. Yes. So there's going to be situations where we are going to ensure that if you are getting into a predictable fight against a creature that you know is going to be dealing a certain kind of damage, and you don't have resistance in mind when you go into that fight, you're going to be penalized for that. That's going to be a really, really difficult situation for you. But we are, trying to balance this against the general flow of Diablo 4 as it stands today, as opposed to trying to remake it into a entirely different experience.
Right.
Dude, this is not a hard concept to grasp. Unless I'm fucking wrong. But resistances are specific to an element. Nothing else is. Therefore, resistances must be most powerful. Otherwise, it's not worth the downside. And they fucked that up. Whatever. You have armor. What he's saying about the whole, if you don't have any poison resistance, you get one ticked by a fucking poison enemy. That's literally why your armor reduces fucking elemental damage. You have your armor, it comes from gear. They can count on a character having a certain minimum amount of fucking armor, and that is just your general balancing knob for defensiveness. That's fucking easy to use. And then you have all the DRs and all that bullshit, right? They are general catch-all shit. Like damage reduction from distance you get more of than you get damage reduction in general. Oh, I press something, right?
And to sort of get to
Oops. So, like, resistances have to be more powerful than anything else. It makes sense that you don't want to fucking be able to just be untouchable by a fire mob or whatever. But couldn't you just fix that by making it do physical damage as well, I guess? But maybe I'm wrong. But I get that point, right? But it's just, I don't think it's conceptually hard to fathom. Armor is the base shit. That's where you can rely on people having a minimum one. So that's how you do not have them just get one ticked by a fucking poison thing. You can increase armor, sure, and it'll have the general effectiveness of the DR shit, right? Like anything that catches all needs to be somewhat at the same power level, and then the more fucking what are the conditionals you put on it, the more effective it has to be against whatever it is working against, right? Or the more conditionals it has, the more powerful it has to be in comparison to something that has no conditionals. So if like you take less damage from burning enemies, well, that has to be more powerful than you take less damage, right? But you take less damage from elites might be more powerful than you take less damage from burning enemies, because now it has to be an elite. And if you then you take less damage from burning elites, that has to be even more powerful than one of those, right? You get my point. And then resistances, it only works against one thing. It works against nothing fucking else than that one thing. And there's, 4 of them, right? I think. Like, obviously, they have to be the best sort of DR against that thing. I don't think that's hard to conceptualize. And they're fixing it for season. What question? I mean, I don't get it, man. They fucked up, and they're trying to fix it for season 2. And should they have fucked up? No. Is it laughably pitiful that they fucked up? Yes. But here we are.
I think the point of the question, the question there, which I think is, do you guys realize that resistances don't feel like they're hitting that goal right now?
That's right. Yep.
We do realize.
Yes.
We're gonna make changes.
Yes.
All right, sounds good. There is a lot of questions about mounts.
I wish you would just say, yeah, resistance are kind of
we've
useless.
gotten a lot of feedback about mounts. We've seen Carbot videos. Our friend Carbot Animation made an episode about mounts. Very funny. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend checking it out. But are there any discussions? Are you guys aware? Like, what are you guys planning on doing in relation to mounts?
Yeah, there are a few changes here. So we want to make mounts feel better, sort of broadly speaking, and a couple of those things are making sure that the boost feels really good, especially with controller.
Shut up with the controller.
And, the boost actually, the boost mechanic on the mounts, it actually stacks. There's a bug right now with that on controller where it's not stacking properly. We're going to fix that. There's a few other. There's a key part of this is that the mount gets stuck on things, and that's
Barricade.
one of the things that barricade, for example. You know, in theory, the idea that you're riding through an area and some bandits or some skeletons have set up a barricade for you, and you have to sort of like dismount and fight all those skeletons. Like, that sounds like a fun idea.
Cool.
It doesn't exactly play out that way. You're just sort of annoyed, and you're like, well, can I like kind of ride around the top of the barricade? And then it's a fight about whether.
Are we going to be allowed to smash through it?
Anyway.
Yep.
We're going to fix that. So there are some good changes to mounts coming soon in the future.
Awesome. And I know that I've been seeing this a lot as well in chat, and this is something I can answer, is I'm seeing a lot of people talk about VRAM, like on PC and so forth, and like how that obviously grows over time with certain players, not all players, but certain players with certain spec machines, and they eventually either have to force close or the game actually just ends up closing itself, and then they have to come back into the game. I know with patch 1.10, there was a update related to a memory leak that we ended up addressing, but then in 1.11, And I know that QA and so forth, our QA team has been working really closely with the graphics engineering team and testing out a fix that's going to be coming in there that should be helping out a lot of those players and making sure that VRAM stays stable throughout their gameplay and so forth. So that will also.
That's
be
really nice because I noticed it. Longer gaming session, it starts struggling at the end.
On that one specifically,
And it gets worse and worse and worse.
There was a question earlier about overpower and the intent behind it, what like future plans and so forth.
Sure,
Kind of similar to the
that one,
resistance questions. I think there's a lot of questions related to a lot of these things that we do plan on actually addressing.
Totally, they're fundamentally like how the game works, so
Yeah.
I understand. So the intent of overpower way back in the day was we really wanted to create a stat that was different than crit and felt meaningfully different that players could chase that had kind of a unique mechanic attached to it. Where overpower sits now is that I really like the idea of it. I think is really cool, which is it rewards you for building a really tanky character and you get a big hit of damage. That's really, really awesome. It also scales off of your max health and then the current health percent that you have at the time, and then also scales with Fortify. So normally these stats aren't things that you want to scale to kill things, right? So we were trying to add another avenue, a vector to do that. And then the other thing that's unique about overpower and how we didn't want to just turn into critical strike chance and damage like a lot of mechanics can be, is that you have a baseline low percent to do it, right? It's 3% across everything. And you can never increase that baseline percent ever. And that is a design choice and a goal.
And it sucks.
And then the idea is that you can, however, get guaranteed overpowers by doing certain mechanics. So the Druid has some, the Necromancer has some, where it's like, hey, you do this thing, and the next one is guaranteed. So you can still play around it, but unlike crit, where you're chasing the random chance to get higher and higher and higher to get those procs, overpower just naturally happens kind of rarely, and then the builds that can use it get it guaranteed. And then that you have different vectors and avenues to scale.
And that
the problem right now with overpower
sucks.
really is not necessarily an overpower problem, but it's really the crit vulnerable problem of these other things that scale multiplicatively just overshadow overpower in the same way that even dot damage is very much a lot of times overshadowed too. And so when we're looking at our revamp, the dream and the goal and the utopia we're moving towards is all of these vectors, and not even just overpower, but there's some other ones that I know I'm thinking of that I can't, like those legendary affixes that spawn stuff is another example.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like we want, when we give you a fantasy as a player, whether it's baseline or via legendaries and uniques, that you're able to build that into the late game and it's delivered on, and you can actually scale and be just as good as anybody else. That's the goal.
I want him to finish his point.
We're not there yet, obviously, but that's kind of the intent. Is overpower is another stat that you can actually chase meaningfully via lots of other stats too that it combines with to make a build, and that's kind of the point.
And that fucking blows donkey dicks. Like, oh, overpower, we want it to be a fucking other avenue than crit. Well, then make it multiplicative like crit is. And also, why do you want it, like, it's a low 3% chance. Who the fuck's gonna build around a 3% chance? And he says, yeah, you can guarantee it for certain builds. Yeah, that means, he said druids and necromancers. Those are the ones that can guarantee it, right? That means druids and necromancers can play overpower builds. And nobody fucking else can. Because who the fuck is gonna build around a 3% chance? Like, who the fuck is meaningfully going to build around a 3% fucking chance to overpower? No, they're gonna take crit. They're like, oh, this 3% is low, it's a design choice. Yeah, it's a fucking dumb one. What the fuck, man? Like, you can't have it compete with crit and then tie it to fucking only work for 2 classes. Because then either, I mean, yeah, sure, if you balance it perfectly, right, and it's the same as crit, then you'll just have those 2 classes just have a thing that the others don't have, and you can call it class fantasy, sure. But then those other 3 classes doesn't have a fucking Scooby of a choice between crit or anything else. They just pick crit, right? If that's what you want, sure. Go away with your deliberate design choice, but dude, nobody's gonna play around a 3% overpower. I'm fucking sorry. Nobody's gonna fucking build overpower on something that can't guarantee it. It's a dead stat for 3 classes and multiple builds within the 2 classes that can actually play it. I think it is so fucking stupid. If you wanted to compete with crit, just make it multiplicative. What if it was your health, your fortified, your max percent health, whatever, and that was the critical strike damage. And then you build up some chance. What? A novel idea. It is kind of just crit, but it scales differently. And it rewards you for building a tanky character. Maybe you make it so you can't get up to the same chances as crit. But, I mean, in order for you to build around something, you have to get to, 25%? Otherwise, who the fuck... 20 maybe? If you can't get to 25%, nobody's gonna fucking play around with it. 3%? The fuck? No. Like, could you imagine making a overpower sorcerer? Yeah, my idea, I'm gonna stack overpower damage, I'm gonna stack willpower, and then those 3% of my fireballs, they're gonna just obliterate. Dude. Yeah, if you wanna play in World Tier 2, sure, go. What?
Awesome. And then this is a question that I know everyone talks about. I don't know if this group up here can fully answer it, but it's something that we can follow up on, which is the zooming in and zooming out on your character, getting a wider look of gameplay and so forth. I know there's like performance implications to that because it increases the draw distance and so forth, and we have a ton of different platforms, so it has to be evaluated in any type of way if we were to make that type of change. Because even when it does zoom out on bosses and so forth, there's like some resolution or scaling and so forth that kind of occurs there. Please don't kill me, engineers, if I'm saying that wrong. But maybe that's another topic we can bring up during like another.
Please just let me
chat with
zoom out a bit more.
Possibly to maybe clarify
Not a
little
lot,
bit on
just
that
a little bit.
So, or we can just follow up separately after the campfire chat. But I know that's a question that a lot of people have been asking. And then there's questions regarding are there any additional options for customization down the road that you guys are looking at, like pets or wings, etc. I know it's something that we're looking at and evaluating, just depending on like player feedback. Right now, we're very focused on, obviously creating more content for players to play through at the moment, more so than some of the cosmetic pieces and so forth. But it is something I know.
I'm a good little pay piggy. Let me pay for more things. Oh.
That players have been asking for.
Yeah, we want to add more stuff like that. That stuff is really fun to add. But we felt that right now what was really important is helping sorcerers, helping barbarians, and some of these other buffs to classes.
And I think there's, we'll do this one last question here before we end the stream, but one thing that people have been asking about is like all the changes that they're seeing today. Is this like encapsulating everything that we're doing? We had a question in here regarding, like, for instance, someone enjoyed playing a frozen orb sorcerer in like Diablo 2, for instance, and wanting to have that same type of fantasy in Diablo 4. Do you guys plan on doing additional adjustments in the future regarding other builds or other, like creating variability across that?
What the fuck kind of question is that? Are you gonna balance in the future? Are you gonna buff up things that are underperforming? If I can't play Frozen Orb Sorcerer now, will I be able to in the future? Of course, they're gonna say yes. What the fuck is that question?
Sure, no, absolutely. This patch, I talked a little bit about like we have our short-term goals and long-term things we're thinking about. Forevermore long-term, really, infinitely long-term, is the idea that, every fantasy that we sell you, and I could talk a lot about, I talk to the team about this all the time.
And by sell, we
yeah, all right, yeah, sell is probably the bad word. But I think that we've like
we're advertising it. Like if you see it on legendary
Every
aspects,
fantasy-
That's really what I
if you
mean
see it on
is-
passives, you see it on skill tags. Like we're saying, like, hey, look, this is a cool thing for you
when
to go
we
after.
show you something that is cool and awesome, we deliver on it, right? Like when you log into Necromancer, you see right away, just when you see your basic skills, like, hey, there's a bone thing, a shadow thing, and a blood thing, right? And then there's army stuff. All of those things should be delivered on and be awesome. And then as you go through the game, when you get legendaries,
You have a bit to go, brother.
You should unlock, one, double down and make those things really cool, and two, unlock more things that are awesome. And what our goal always is that all of these things are awesome and cool. When we find something that isn't hitting the mark, we either buff it or redesign it in such a way that it's hitting the mark and it's attractive and ideally really fun and exciting for.
I also kind of like that this guy, this Adam, is not very PR trained. When we sell you an idea, and these two are very PR trained, and they're like, when we sell, we mean something else. We don't mean that you have to pay $9.99 for the fucking fucking blood build of Necromancer.
Players to change. That's always
It's like, oh no, Diablo Immortal vibes.
So yeah, this isn't exhaustive forever. We are always going to be adapting and updating things. And if something just really isn't working, even if it's like something that I made, I have no hubris about like, hey, that thing, it was awful. Make it something good, right? Like at the end of the day, the players are the ultimate judge, jury, and executioner for us. Of like, did it work? Is it good? Is it fun? Yes or no? If not, then we have to be malleable enough to change that.
Right, and we could be looking at data too. We could be seeing like how many players are picking what kinds of passes, what kind
Absolutely,
of
we
aspects
do
are they
all the time,
wearing, what kind of uniques are they using, like, and we can say, you know, it's like we know when like if no one's equipping a particular aspect, like we can see that, but like, okay, well that's clearly something we're gonna need to want to rework or update or buff or do something with, right? Like this, to Adam's point, it is a never-ending process. You know, we keep talking about how, you know, we're all here trying to make Diablo 4 the very best game that it can be, and the reality is
I don't
this
understand
is
this
iterations
question.
of
That's
conversation with
fucking,
the community,
of course.
and also looking at this kind of data.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we have a ton of changes here coming up for 1.1.1 that you guys got to see here, especially for class changes.
I think this is it.
Thanks to Adam for kind of walking us through
thank you.
everything.
Yeah.
And, we do have final patch
Still
notes
3
coming next
minutes.
Wednesday.
Is
That
he just gonna
August 2nd.
talk until?
Reveal.
I think he usually does,
Reveal
right?
full, where people can read through them and provide full feedback and so forth. And then of course, that's my tick. Someone called out my tick earlier, and so forth. Stop that, Adam. That's my tick. I will stop that one day. I probably won't. But we actually do have our patch for 1.1.1. The date will be on August 8th as well. So players can expect patch notes next Wednesday, and then of course 1.1.1 hitting on August 8th, which is Tuesday. So looking forward to seeing everyone's feedback, everyone jumping in, and checking out, of course, the new changes coming to pretty much every class now, and in regards to balance changes and so forth. Oh, I did it again.
And so forth.
Now you're in your own head.
Now,
Be like
now, I'm,
clap
in
every
my,
time
now,
I
now I'm
do
just
it.
stuck in this like my own empty room saying it over and over. But anyways,
And give us feedback on how this went, like, and how you like this format for talking about patch notes.
exactly. Yeah, we want to see if this worked out really well with the community. So yeah, please provide feedback. Us going through the notes and then of course releasing the notes afterwards. It's a huge help for us. And how to communicate
Fucking
with you
FOMO,
guys,
man. There's 2 minutes. I don't think they're gonna say anything.
Thank you guys again. We hope you enjoyed this Campfire Chat ++, new game ++.
Sure.
And we will see you on our next stream, which we haven't announced on. We're thinking about doing some Campfire Chats with like maybe other teams here, whether it's our art, animation teams, audio teams, and so forth, just so you guys can see kind of a
I should have
deeper
just
look
stopped.
into some of the
We're
development
committed
within,
now.
Our seasons.
It's gonna be a
and
2-hour
Diablo
video
4,
anyways.
from other people. So
Milk-
we do
milk
plan
the
on expanding
fucking-
these a little bit more, and of course having Campfire
Milk
Chats
the-
and
milk
dev
the
update
bad
streams,
viewer retention
to
rate.
talk more about the game, gameplay, and design, and so forth.
You did it again.
Thanks.
All right.
I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you again from the Diablo 4 team here at Blizzard, and yeah, have a great Friday.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's the only thing. I don't think there's anything to dislike about this patch so far. Like, it's just buffs. You can't be mad that they're buffing things, right? There's just buffs to everything. Like, there's nothing to be mad about. The only thing I will say is I feel like the overpower shit, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, we want it to be a fucking alternative to crit, yet only 2 classes can do it, and only certain builds within those 2 classes can do it, and it doesn't scale as well as crit. What? Make it multiplicative, but additive with crit. What? Like, you have... excuse me? Like, how is... That can't be hard, right? Like, if I hit for 100, and if I crit, I hit for 200, and if I overpower, I hit for 200, but then I don't overpower for 200 and then crit for 400. No, instead, I just crit and overpower for 300. Boom. You pick one, you scale that shit. And then let us up the chance. Nobody's gonna build around a 3%. If you want it to be a fucking alternative to crit, let me scale the chance, or let everybody fucking guarantee it. But then it's kind of boring, isn't it? Then you need to get sorcerer something that can guarantee it, and you need to get barb something that can guarantee it, and you need to get rogue something that can guarantee it, because otherwise it is a druid and necro only skill and only for certain builds, and that's not at all an alternative to crit. But yeah, I mean, good changes. 2 seconds off the teleport out again. Nice. And then some buffs. Am I going to play Sork now? Is the question. I don't think so. I don't think there's enough. I am kind of excited for the Chain Lightning stuff. Maybe there's something cool. I will definitely, if I hit 100 on the Druid and I feel like I get done what I want to get done, kill Uber Lilith and shit, and I feel like there's still some game in me, I will try a Sork. Or if I guess if I get stuck on the Druid and I get bored because the hearts are boring, then maybe I could consider it. But for now, the plan is stick to Druid, and then we'll hit the Sork if I want and have the drive to do it. I hope you enjoyed this. It's been 2 hours. We milked that bad viewer retention. The last one I did got horrible views, so repeating the not success because I'm stupid. But this is what interests me, so I'll try. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.